Welcome back to World Crisis Radio. Webster Tarpley here in Washington, D.C. So, continuing just for a second on this financial front. In terms of Goldman Sachs, you may remember the week after panic, we had the 1 week which started very early Monday morning, 1 to 2 a.m. in the morning. Lehman Brothers declares bankruptcy. Later that day, Merrill Lynch is taken over by Bank of America, ultimately, and AIG then within 24 hours essentially taken over by the U.S. government because of their credit default swaps. The following week, Goldman Sachs, which had been in danger of going down, was saved by a large investment by Warren Buffett, the great idol of all of these finance capitalists. And it turns out that was the object of insider trading, that a guy, one of the directors we mentioned him before at Goldman Sachs director Gupta was in cahoots with his friend Raja Ratnam at Galleon Fund, a hedge fund. So this hedge fund hyena, whom we call Raja Raja Ratnam at Galleon Fund, is in cahoots with Gupta. Raja Ratnam and 21 others at Galleon Fund are under criminal indictment. But it's now coming out that Gupta pretty much clearly leaked that information. So he's a party to nefarious conduct. So all of this stuff about how Goldman Sachs has these controls and they're some of the best in Wall Street, this is obviously baloney. The other thing we want to watch out for in the middle of this is the IMF under this Dominique Strauss-Kahn. He says today that the U.S. is proceeding too soon to financial regulations. Are you crazy, Strauss-Kahn, that this might interfere with the international regime that he wants? Well, good. We want to stop his international regime. We say no to the International Monetary Fund, no to the value-added tax, no value-added regressive tax under any circumstances. We're for the Tobin tax, the securities transfer tax, financial transfer tax, Robin Hood tax, Wall Street sales tax, but not for the IMF. Let's get serious. Not that the money goes to the IMF. The money stays in Washington, half of it, and half of it goes to the states. And if you think of the U.S. Credit bubble, derivatives bubble, let's assume about a quadrillion. So it's $1,000 trillion. Well, you get 1% of that. It's $10 trillion. $5 trillion for Washington, $5 trillion for the states. You can see that the deficits of government are more or less in line, correspond roughly to the fact that the finance capitalists don't pay taxes. They don't pay it on their turnover, they don't pay a sales tax, and they don't pay taxes on corporate income tax. We know that Goldman Sachs paid something like 3% of their profits as taxes. We just heard ExxonMobil doesn't pay anything. So no taxes on working people until Wall Street pays through the nose, and also these other monopolies, these predatory extractive monopolies like ExxonMobil. And the point with that is, if you want to fight the VAT tax, you've got to have a counter-argument. There are two scenarios. One is the IMF comes up with the VAT tax, and the answer is, well, I don't cotton to no big government. That's pathetic. That's a loser. That gets you nowhere because it's clear it's a depression. Somebody's going to pay for the depression, and it's probably going to happen through taxes. The only question now is the finance oligarchs have created a depression. Who's going to pay for it? And if your only answer is I don't like the government, you lose. You're nowhere. You're pathetic. You've got to be able to say, no, wait a minute. We want Wall Street, the biggest flow of money that's presently untaxed. We want them to pay. And that means the Tobin tax, the Robin Hood tax, the Wall Street sales tax, securities transfer tax, and so forth. It shows again and again that the naive Austrian or Chicago anti-government view plays into the hands of the Wall Street rascals. And you will have heard Rush Limbaugh this past week contorting himself like the India rubber man to defend Goldman Sachs, against the Securities and Exchange Commission. According to Limbaugh, you may think that the SEC is protecting you from Goldman Sachs, but in reality it's the reverse. In other words, Goldman Sachs is looking out for you. This is absolute garbage and couldn't be clearer as an apology, a paid apologist for finance capital, hedge fund predators, and the rest. Now, that gets us to the derivatives situation. See my commentary on Russia Today. Now, here's the idea. Obama went to Wall Street this week. He spoke at Cooper Union. It's a place, the auditorium downstairs at Cooper Union in the old building from the 1850s. This is where Lincoln gave his first address in New York City. I spoke there myself in September of 2007. So if you stand where Lincoln stands, you better make sure that your ideas are at the level of Lincoln. Obama, of course, strikes out completely. Obama's predicament, of course, is that he's a Wall Street puppet. He was put into office by Wall Street. He got $1 million from Goldman Sachs, which he's hanging on to. He has to make a show of fighting against Wall Street without really doing it. And he's being pushed, of course, by House Democrats in particular, who feel the icy breath of panic on their necks, that their shenanigans are unpopular. They're going to be voted out. They've got to get some economic populist street cred. So I would say, rather than sit on the sidelines and saying, don't like no government, get in there and fight and try to get something out of it, because derivatives are the plague of civilization. Anything you can do against derivatives, it's worth doing. So be sophisticated and engage rather than being naive and sit on the sidelines with these shop-worn slogans. So the Obama, of course, regime has imposed this health care reform, which is largely a bailout of the insurance companies. As we pointed out, it's not a government takeover of health care. It's a takeover of government by insurance companies. And the insurance companies use government then as a collection agent to force you to pay, and they also set up a protective tariff for themselves against international importation of comparable prescription drugs. We've also got, of course, around Obama, Geithner, Bernanke, Summers, the paladins of the 2008 bailout essentially are all there. So the pitchforks are out, and there's a quest for economic populist credibility. Let's also remember what is often forgotten. Derivatives caused the 2008 panic. Derivatives. It's not a question of subprime mortgages causing the panic. They're small. The whole subprime market is about $1.5 trillion. That's 1/10 the residential estate market in the U.S., about $15 trillion. And, of course, the derivatives bubble in the U.S. alone is about $1,000 trillion. So how could maybe $1 trillion, if it was that, of subprime, bring down the entire banking system? It's obviously absurd. This is a reactionary fairy tale invented by these characters like Limbaugh who muddy the waters so you don't understand the nature of the depression that you're in. And we'll be back in a minute.